Well, hello there, Ramblers, and welcome to another gripping instalment of Rees Rambles, my weekly podcast type thing, all about the comings and goings in the worlds of vintage and retro computing and gaming. And wow, that was a very streamlined version of the intro, wasn't it? I must apologise. I feel I must apologise up front. I have to say, I bit my tongue yesterday, and it's a bit fat and a bit swollen, so yeah, if I talk a bit funny in parts of this, that's the reason why. But we're going to persevere. Of course, last week's Ramble was a bit of a behind-the-scenes channel update, so thank you to everyone for your comments on that. But yeah, let's dive back in with the news, because it's been far too long. And first up, I want to cover one of my favourite games of all time. And would you like a guess before I click the button? Yeah, well, it's probably in the title, isn't it, anyway? So, yeah, this is Doom, and specifically, it's the Saturn version of Doom. And I know I talk about Doom quite a lot in these rambles, but it's a game that's very dear to my heart, and I will never apologise for that. But this is quite interesting, because somebody has discovered an previously unknown to science cheat for the Saturn version of Doom. In this, the year of our Lord 2024, 27 years after the Saturn port was released in 1997. And yeah, I think actually the big headline here is that 1997 was 27 years ago, but we won't dwell on that. So this comes from memory_fallen on Twitter, whatever it's called this week, aka Bo, Low Context Burning Rangers. And the content of the tweet is thus. Here's a cheat code for the Saturn version of Doom that I think has gone unnoticed since 1997. And from what I see, from what I can see, nobody has disputed that. So we'll go with that. You pause the game and you press X, right, B, Y, X, right, B, Y. And what does it do? It makes the walls in the game semi-transparent, oddly enough. And I must say, just before we have a look at these screenshots, that the Saturn was kind of not really known for its transparency effects. That's some of the discussion that I've seen around this. And yeah, this is proof that it can actually do transparency really well. So there you go. That's another cool aspect of this newly discovered cheat. But yeah, we'll take a look at the screenshots here. So we've got E1, M1 here, of course, a classic starting level, looking out of the window. And we go to the next one. And it's that, but all of the building is transparent, and you can see the mountains and the things in the background, the skybox, I believe they call it. And if we just click through, yeah, we've got a screenshot from another level here. I don't recognise that. Maybe it's one that's specific to the Saturn version. And again, walls are gone, and we've got what's that in the background? It's like some kind of burning city or something. So yeah, interesting stuff. But new cheats being discovered for a game that was released 27 years ago. I mean, you know, maybe it's not a new discovery, but I found it quite interesting. And I must admit, I've never actually checked out the Saturn version of Doom. I don't think it's one of the ones that's kind of held in in very high regard. I think as far as the console ports go, the PlayStation port was probably the gold standard, wasn't it? The Atari Jaguar port is very good, but doesn't have the music, and I am a big fan of the music in Doom, so that's kind of a bit of a deal breaker for me. But otherwise, it is an excellent port. But yeah, as far as the Saturn goes, I'm not sure it's one that's ranked very highly. But hey, maybe this is an excuse for me to finally check it out on my Mister. So a couple of interesting bits of news for Evercade owners this week that I just wanted to point out. And I should also point out that I did own an Evercade for quite a while, and I was collecting the cartridges for it, and I thought it was quite a cool little handheld system. But yeah, a combination of things made me sell it, I think. The first one being that I didn't really use it at all. And I know that doesn't usually stop me from keeping these things, but in this case, you know, I thought it'd be better off with someone who would actually enjoy it. But perhaps more importantly, owning one did kind of compel me to keep buying the cartridges that I never played. Because I am a bit of a collector, and I'm a bit of a sucker for anything that has numbers on them, particularly. Because you don't want a gap in your collection, do you? But yeah, of course, it's originally started as a handheld console made by a British company called Blaze. I think later on they released a version called the EXP, which was mildly upgraded and had a better screen and stuff. And then they released the Versus, which was a TV version of the console. And the thing that they have in common is that they all take these lovely little cartridges that Evercade make and have nicely curated selections of games on them. So you've got your arcade classic collections, and you've got I think there's a Dizzy collection now. I think that was kind of after my time. A Duke Nukem collection. There Worms and all that kind of stuff. You get the idea. Anyway, interesting bit of news this week is that it turns out you can actually play some of these games with analog controllers, and all it took was for Evercade to actually add support for that on the software side. So this comes via timeextension.com, and the headline is, new Evercade update includes a hotly requested feature. Analog support for third-party controllers is here. Now, obviously the story behind this is that the controllers that have come with the Evercade console since day one have only ever had a digital D-pad input. They've never done an official analog controller, and indeed, as part of this announcement, they've also said that they're not going to be making an analog controller, and that none of the games actually require one to play. But if you want to use one, there are quite a few games in the collection already that support it, and now this is a thing. I guess that support's going to be expanding. So yeah, the catch is that controller support is currently in beta, so don't expect every single third-party USB analog controller you have in the house to work perfectly, reads Time Extension. Blaze has also stated that it presently has no plans to produce an official Evercade analog pad. It also assures Evercade handheld owners that despite this new support, analog controls are not required for any Evercade games. All games have been tested to be fully playable and beatable, with just the D-pad as the main directional control. And I appreciate that that's just repeating what I've just said, but there we go. So once you've downloaded the latest system update, you need to head to the settings menu using your standard controller, click on the system menu, and then select enable analog support for third-party controllers, beta. And then you can plug in your analog pad, and you can go and remap the buttons, and you'll have the option to start using the analog stick in many of these games. So we've been told by Blaze that Xbox, PlayStation, and 8-bit Do-pads, should work fine, as well as some other brands. We've been using the 8-bit Do SN30 Pro, which is detected by the Evercade Versus as an Xbox 360 pad. Very nice. And there's a short list here of games which support analog controls. We've got Worms Armageddon, we've got Speedball 2100, 40 Winks, Duke Nukem Land of the Babes, Duke Nukem Time to Kill, Glover, Tomb Raider 3, and Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. So yeah, I can certainly see some of these kind of 3D platformers and stuff really benefiting from this, especially on systems that originally had those analog sticks. So I guess it was just a matter of time before they introduced this, but it's very cool to see. So the new update also brings a safe eject feature for cartridges, rapid fire for certain arcade titles, and automatic saving of high scores in relevant games. So quite a lot of cool stuff in this update too. And we even managed to juggle our schedule enough to sneak in a hidden little secret for those who are on the ball, but we'll leave that for you to discover for yourself. I wonder what that is. You know what? I'm not going to spoil that. I'm not going to click on that link. Or am I? Let's click on the link. What does it say? Oh, okay. I was actually going to talk about this anyway. Yeah. So, yeah, this isn't such a secret. Yeah, just following on from this, I also spotted this story and wanted to draw your attention to this as well. And again, it will be linked in the usual places. And this is a really good comprehensive guide on how to unlock secret games. Oh, sandwich fans here. How to unlock the secret games that are hidden on some of the Evercade cartridge collections. And there's actually quite a good list of these and, various codes that you have to type in to unlock them. I wasn't aware that these secret games existed, so that's very cool. Oh, and one very important thing to bear in mind that I should have mentioned, of course, this only works on the Evercade Versus, the TV version of the console, because they require you to have 2 cartridges in the system at the same time, and of course the handhelds only have 1 cartridge slot. If you're watching this on YouTube, it probably hasn't escaped your attention that there is a Dreamcast on the shelf behind me, and indeed it does appear in all of my videos because it's part of my set. And that is my original Dreamcast console from back in the day, the Sega Dreamcast, originally launched in 1999. And also, if you're in America, this week will have marked the 25th anniversary of that launch, very famously launched on 9th of the 9th, 1999, or the 9s. And I think we got it about a month later here in Europe. And of course, Japan, its home market, had already had the console for a year by that point. But the launch isn't, or the anniversary of the launch isn't really the story that I want to report on this week, although, of course, it does bear mentioning. But no, some interesting homebrew that I have previously mentioned on a Ramble. And it turns out this was only a month ago, and I had to double check because it's incredible how much progress has been made on this project in the past month. So let's go straight to this. And we also have an kind of a semi-official endorsement of the project as well, which I'll just start with. So this is Obi Vermey, something like that. Apologies to all of my Dutch viewers. But this is on Twitter, and he was actually a technical director at Rockstar during the time GTA 3 was under development. And he's actually given some publicity to this project and quote tweeted it. So he says, there is an impressive effort going on to make GTA 3 run on the Sega Dreamcast. The first months of development of GTA 3, back in 99/2000, were done on the Dreamcast. For commercial reasons, we switched to PS2. At the time, we did think it was technically possible to pull it off on the Dreamcast, and these guys are actually doing it. Nice one. So, yeah, isn't that a really nice endorsement from him? But, yeah, of course, what we're interested in is the video and the progress on this project. So we have Falco Gergis here, and he is part of the team and also responsible for the Dreamcast SDK, which is actually being used to build this project. And the latest status here says no more clipping issues, solid 30 FPS frame rate, most effects are present, very playable at this early stage. Still have a lot of work to go, but she's shaping up quite nicely. And this video does look very impressive. I mean, we've got someone here just getting into a fire engine and driving off, but we've got weather, we've got rain, we've got all the lighting effects and things. It's running nice and smoothly. I mean, it's essentially GTA 3. It's very recognisably GTA 3 and does look very playable at this stage. So cool to see that this project is progressing and proving what Rockstar claimed all along, that this game would have worked on the Dreamcast, and hopefully by the time it's done, will give us another cool game to play on that console as well, which is always nice to see. Of course, the Dreamcast does have a thriving homebrew development community, as it should. Partly enabled by the fact that it very easily runs recordable media, which was a bit of a double-edged sword back in the day for the console, of course, because it was also used to enable rampant piracy, which was a little bit trickier on the PlayStation. But yeah, just watching this video, of course, I will link to this. It looks cool. We've got the guy here who's just running up to. No, he's just missed out. He's just about to steal a taxi, I think. Oh, and then he jumps into a truck. I mean, it looks great with the lighting and stuff. This looks really impressive. And hopefully they'll be making a few improvements and things as well to the graphics, because it's the Dreamcast. It's got quite a unique and powerful 3D graphics hardware, and I think they should take advantage of that. Make it look a bit more Dreamcasty. And also, while I am on the subject of the Dreamcast, which is a subject I could talk about at length, a couple of bits of news from Retro Dodo here as well. So tied in with that 25th anniversary, Sega has teamed up with Limited Run Games, and they've made a trading card collection. So we have a Dreamcast console themed box here with the trading cards in it. We've got some VMUs. You remember the old memory units that used to slot into the controllers? They've got packs of trading cards that are based around those. And the cards themselves are themed on, of course, the big games on the Dreamcast at the time. So we've got Sonic Adventure, we've got Crazy Taxi, we've got Shenmue, we've got Space Channel 5, all the favourites there. As you might expect, a little Choo Choo Rocket one as well. And basically, this is a pack. It says this is going to be released in March 2025, and it comes with a load of other merchandise as well. So there's T-shirts, hoodies, a skate deck. Oh, a Dreamcast skate deck. I like that. I might have to grab one of those for the studio. A hat, coins, keychain, trading cards, box, and whatnot, and a pin. Can't beat a nice pin, can you? And yeah, there's over 200 unique trading cards to collect, featuring characters, box art, logos, and more, with ultra-rare insert cards and serialized cards. The booster packs come in 5 unique designs, featuring 5 different colour variants of the VMU. The box is $124.99, and that's the Dreamcast thing, with 24 packs in total, so you get a fair few cards for your money. And the hobby box is $24.99 with 4 packs of trading cards. And pre-orders close on the 13th of October, which is a month from the date of recording today. So if you want to pre-order those, make sure you get on it. Again, that will be linked. And the other little bit of news that I just spotted while I was on Retro Dodo looking at this story are these rather snazzy controllers released by Retro Fighters. And this is the D6 Dreamcast wireless controller for your favourite fighting game. So it doesn't include the analog stick, which of course the original controller did have, but does have all of the other buttons and the D-pad and stuff. Get ready to treat your hands while playing Street Fighter 3, Marvel vs. Capcom, and all the other amazing fighting games in your collection, because Retro Fighters has just announced their D6 Dreamcast wireless controller, fighting gamepad for the Dreamcast that also works on PC and Switch. So there you go. How cool does that thing look? I mean, I've already got the 8BitDo M30s, which I think are based on the, well, I know they're based on the original Mega Drive controllers. They're some of my favourite controllers for my Mister. I quite like the original Dreamcast controllers. Some people find them a bit pokey and a bit weird and kind of painful to hold after a while. Of course, you've got the weirdness with the cable coming out of the bottom rather than the top, and then there's like the clip in the back to clip it into the back of the controller. But always nice to have other options. I should probably mention the price as well, shouldn't I? So yeah, the D6 controller will cost $44.99, which puts it on par with Retro Fighter's other gamepads like the Brawler 64. And there are no details as to when the controller will be dropping yet or when pre-orders will become available, though the team has assured us that it will be soon. So keep checking back for more information as and when that drops. Cool. I do love these modern retro-style controllers, particularly when they're very high quality as well. I mean, Retro Fighters are known for making decent controllers. 8-Bit Do, like I mentioned before, making replicas of these kind of Mega Drive and SNES and all sorts of stuff nowadays. It'd be nice to have an N64 controller, wouldn't it? Now there's an N64 core for the Mister. There probably is one. Someone will probably let me know down in the comments. But yeah, loads of Dreamcast news this week, and it's always good to see. And now it's time to talk about my channel, the stuff that I've released in the past week. I always like to joke that it's my favourite subject, and it's only because it's one of the very few things that I actually know anything about. Myself, my own videos. Sad that, isn't it? But anyway, just before I sat down to record this ramble, I released a video into the wild, and I've just spotted the horrible mistake that I've made with the positioning of myself up in the corner here, because I'm actually covering my own face, and probably quite important stuff. I need to remember to move that for next week. But anyway, the show must go on. So this video is all about the Tiny PC, Tiny computers. And no, that's not a physically tiny PC. It is a brand called Tiny, which was a British brand in the 90s and the early 2000s. Very prolific. They advertised on TV and in all the national press, and yeah, really huge. They even had high street shops and stuff. And this PC is very special to me as well, because we actually had one of these brand new in 1994. It was a slightly lower spec than this version, but essentially the same. And I was so glad to be able to get my hands on one of these again, finally, and actually ended up going on a very interesting nostalgia trip, talking all about kind of late 90s, early 2000s internet and the kind of stuff that people were sharing with each other, and silly little videos and flash games and all of that stuff. Stuff that I grew up with. I mean, I was 16 in the year 2000, and we'd already been online for a few years at that point, as I talk about in the video. And as you might expect from this channel, of course, there's also a bit of a cleaning montage, a bit of sun brighting. Didn't go all the way and retro bright it, but I did want to kind of even things up a little bit, and that was actually very successful. There's a before and after comparison, so you can see the results of that in the video. And yeah, just nice to check this out. But it wasn't always that way. So bit of behind the scenes information, a bit of drama has unfolded on my Patreon in the past week, because I recorded an initial version of this video that I wasn't happy with and didn't quite sit right with me. And I couldn't quite put my finger on why. So I sent it out to them and I said, I really desperately need some help with this, because something's not right with this video, and I can't for the life of me work it out, but I'm not comfortable with it and I don't really want to put it out there. And instantly multiple people pointed out to me that it was probably the part when I was digging around in the previous owner's emails looking for interesting stuff. Now, in my defense, I will say that I didn't show any kind of personal stuff on screen. I heavily censored quite a lot of it. But it did feel quite intrusive, and of course, people staring at a screen that was, over 50% blurred out also didn't make for very interesting viewing for them either. So yeah, I went back to the drawing board. I actually literally just deleted everything from about the 12-minute mark onwards, which was quite painful because I'd put quite a lot of work into it. But hey, you shouldn't be afraid to throw stuff away. And then kind of discovered this whole different story of British people getting online en masse in the late 90s and early 2000s. Free ISPs like FreeServe, and yeah, I think it ended up being all the better. Well, I know it ended up being all the better for it. And it's a video that I'm actually very proud of now. So yeah, if you want to go and check that out, if you haven't already, of course, I'll link it in the usual places. But a bit early to talk about stats and stuff. I can see here that it's done, 378 views in the first hour. But the stats on the video page are always a little bit vague. But I'll give an update on that next week, I guess, if I remember. But yeah, very much back to my roots with this video, as per the previous one about the Atari 7800. I'm going to poke around some hardware, and it was a great one to put together. And it won't be the last you'll be seeing of this PC either. So I have a few ideas for some future projects. Hopefully one very soon as well. But yeah, we'll do that when it comes to it. I think I've talked far too much about myself for now, so let's talk about somebody else's video. And what a lovely and well-planned segue into my Video of the Week feature. What even is that? You wouldn't believe that I played instruments for most of my life now, would you? I mean, improvisation was never my strong point, but that's not what we're here for. So, yes, my Video of the Week. Every week I pick a video that I have watched in the past week from my watch history in YouTube, and share it with you. And I always try to find something a bit more unusual, something that people might not have come across. But this is another kind of reasonably big channel. It's a guy that I've been following for a very long time. We've been very kind of supportive of each other's work. A guy called Nathan. We do chat behind the scenes occasionally, and I think he discovered me when I did my S3 Verge video all those years ago, and we've kind of been in touch ever since. But no hesitation whatsoever to recommend his channel, not just because I like the guy, but because this video is brilliant and taught me something that I didn't know before. And that's actually something quite rare in this day and age of retro computing videos. So let's stop beating about the bush and have a look at the video itself. So this is all about the S3 Gamma-Chrome S18 Pro. Yeah, so what Nathan does on his channel, Pixel Pipes, is he picks apart graphics cards, GPUs from the past. And yeah, this is a very, very rare one indeed. And I don't remember these at all. A very short-lived card. The one that he's got on here is like a pre-production sample prototype thing. And he, of course, as usual for his channel, puts it through its paces, shows various games running on it, benchmarks it, and perhaps more importantly, tells the story behind it and how it came to be and how it kind of fit into the market at the time, or indeed would have fit in had it been anything near a commercial success. But I love this era of weird and obscure hardware, you know, all these manufacturers trying strange, interesting things. And as some people have pointed out in the comments here, you know, just to see one of these kind of later S3 DirectX 9 gaming graphics cards, I mean, it wasn't a thing at the time, but interesting to see their take on that. Yeah, really, really nerding out on GPUs here, and I love it. So, yeah, I thought this was a really great video. It's 34 minutes 49 long, so it is a slightly longer one, but it is a very technical video, and he does do a very deep dive into all sorts of stats and benchmarks, and I've already explained all of that. So if that is of interest, and it should be if you enjoy my channel, I will link that in the usual place, so you can go check it out. Right, just a few stories this week that I didn't really have anything too exciting or interesting or in-depth to say about, but just wanted to bring to your attention. So let's have a quick look at some of these. And the first one is to do with Flappy Bird. Now, I have just sat here and tried to record this about 15 times, trying to make this into an actual item for this week's Ramble. And I couldn't make it work because it's a mobile game from 11 years ago. Yeah, it was a huge cultural phenomenon, and yeah, it's kind of interesting that it's coming back, particularly with the whole story around it. And apparently it was making $50,000 a day in ad revenue at one point, and it all became too overwhelming for the original developer, and he ended up taking the game down quite famously, which of course gave it kind of mythical status in the history of game development and whatnot. So yeah, apparently a fan-led foundation has teamed up and actually acquired the rights to the game, as well as a game called Pew Pew vs. Cactus, Pew Pew vs. however you say that, which was apparently the inspiration for Flappy Bird, and it's coming back in some form or other later on this year. Now, of course, being a mobile game in 2024, is it likely that it's going to be stuffed full of monetization stuff, microtransactions, scummy stuff, and in-game currency and all of that? I mean, the original wasn't. It had a very small and unobtrusive, very easy to block ad banner. But yeah, it does make you wonder what direction they're going to take it in. But I wouldn't care to speculate, and they haven't really released much. Although there is a trailer, if you want to go and watch a trailer for the relaunch of Flappy Bird. The next story that I wanted to have a look at was this one, and this is something that I have reported on before. It's the Super Sega FPGA console. So this is an FPGA-based console that runs Sega games, believe it or not. It's not just a clever name. And yeah, it runs Master System, Mega Drive, and Sega CD software. I believe it also runs, yeah, Saturn and Dreamcast games. There we go. And they have now announced that you can actually you can pre-order one for €3 or $3. Of course, that isn't the full cost of the system. That's just to get your name on the queue. And then once it actually does become available for sale, that will also get you 30% off, which is quite cool. So they've announced that it's going to be, the final price is expected to be between €300 and €350. And it's quite a comprehensive looking thing. Obviously, it's got quite a beefy FPGA in it, so it can run those Dreamcast and Saturn games. It's got an optical drive in it, of course, so you can run the original discs for those. And it has a whole bunch of connectivity for all the various controllers for all of those various consoles. So quite a substantial project. Apparently I had heard that they had been in touch with Sega trying to work out some kind of deal. It doesn't look like Sega are currently trying to shut this down, but I also don't know if it's going to be official or semi-official or have their blessing, or they're going to turn a blind eye to it or what. So I guess you are taking a bit of a risk with your €3 or $3, but ultimately, yeah, you've got to be in it to win it, and might be worth getting in there just to give it a punt. The next story is from GameDeveloper.com, and this is the Atari CEO, Wade Rosen. And Atari has had a very good year. They've done very well financially, and he's putting it all down to them no longer being what he describes as a fast follower. So other companies were doing stuff, Atari were following up very quickly. Of course, he talks quite positively about their buyouts of Digital Eclipse and Night Dive, which I think were very good moves business-wise, and how he's kind of taking the company in a new direction. You know, they don't want to be part of this huge AAA game industry with mass layoffs and that kind of thing. They're taking it slow and steady, growing the business, and focusing on sustainability and all of that kind of stuff. Which, yeah, all sounds very good, doesn't it? They also haven't ruled out acquiring any more studios or getting involved with any of the Web3 stuff and stuff like that they've been involved with in the past. Although, thankfully, in recent years, not quite as heavily. But that all looks quite promising, and it's quite an interesting and in-depth article as well that I'm not going to be able to sum up here and really do justice to. So that will be linked, as you might expect. The next story is that, there's been more drama in the world of FPGA, and I don't want to report on drama, but this is to do with some arcade cores and Hotego and somebody from the Mars FPGA project having a bit of a pop at him, which is not cool. Cut it out, guys. It's we're all in the same hobby together, and it's people arguing about money and about Patreon and about how people choose to monetize their work, which is always going to be a contentious subject, I guess. And finally, the last of these little stories that I want to pick up on is that Tony Hawk has mentioned that he has been talking to Activision about some kind of project, although he hasn't said what. So it is the 25th anniversary of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, apparently, and it looks like they're looking to do something. Now, apparently they did also rebrand all of the official Tony Hawk's Pro Skater social media stuff a while back, about a month back. So evidently Activision haven't forgotten that it exists and do have something planned. They have done remasters of the first few games in the past, and I must admit I wasn't all that enamoured with those. I loved the games back in the day, but didn't really think that the remasters were all that great. Didn't really seem to kind of add much or anything like that. But maybe a whole new game would be good, wouldn't it? But anyway, Tony Hawk was a guest on Mythical Kitchen, which is a great YouTube channel anyway. And he just happened to mention this in passing. But that was quite an interesting thing to go and watch anyway. Not just for the gaming aspect of it, but because it's Tony Hawk and he's a cool guy. So that's just some stuff that I didn't really have time to go into any depth on this week. But sadly, as always, our time together this week must draw to a close. So thank you ever so much for joining me. I hope you found this educational and informative and entertaining. Quite console heavy this week, I feel. That's just the way the news kind of went. But I'll try and dig up some hardware projects and stuff for next week's episode. I always like to give very terrible, unreliable weather predictions for the UK as part of these rambles. And I woke up this morning to go to my 7 a.m. PT session, and it was 2 degrees C. But it has turned into quite a nice sunny day, if not still quite a chilly one. So my prediction for this weekend, without having looked at the forecast, is that it's going to be warm and sunny and lovely. So yeah, now it's almost definitely not going to be. Thanks for joining me, and that's all I got. So bye.